That took entirely too long. That took entirely too long to get this back. Oh my god. Okay, hello. I don't think I read much before I realized that we were buffering, so I'll just go from where we started. Yeah, I'll just go from where we started, from where we left off. Sorry. Okay, let's go. But none of the whores or the sailors or the traders had news of Prince Holland's or Queen Georgina's fates. War was coming, and the fate of a child and a flippant queen who had never bothered to take power for herself was of little concern to anyone but Dorian, it seemed. On a particularly steamy afternoon, cooling off now thanks to a dazzling thunderstorm, Dorian set down his fork beside his plate of steamed reef fish and said to Rowan, "I find I'm tired of waiting for Rolf to meet with us." Rowan's fork clinked against his plate as he lowered it and waited with preternatural stillness. Where Gavriel and Fenris were for the afternoon, he didn't care. Dorian was actually grateful for their absence as he said, "I need some paper and a messenger." Rolf summoned them and the cadre to the Sea Dragon Tavern 3 hours later. The fuck? What the fuck did he put in that note? Rowan had been teaching him about shielding these past few days, and Dorian erected one around himself as Rolf led the 4 of them along the upstairs hall of the tavern, heading for his office. His idea had unfolded smoothly, perfectly. No one had noticed that the letter Rowan mailed after lunch was the same one that was later delivered to Dorian at the... Oh, okay. It was the same one that was later delivered to Dorian at the inn. But Rolf's spies noticed the shock that Dorian displayed while reading it, the dismay and fear and rage at whatever news he'd received. Rowan, true to form, had paced and snarled at the news he'd attained. They made sure the servant washing the hallway had overheard their mention of the war-altering information that Rolf himself could gain much from, or lose everything. And now, striding for the man's office, Dorian couldn't tell if it pleased or unnerved him that they were so closely watched that his plan had worked. Damn. Gavriel and Fenris thankfully asked no questions. The pirate lord, clad in a faded blue and gold jacket, paused before the oak doors to his office. His gloves were on, his face a bit haggard. He doubted that expression would improve when Rolf realized there was no news whatsoever, and he'd have this meeting whether he wanted to or not. Dorian caught the 3 females assessing Rolf's each breath, his posture, listening to the sounds of the first mate and quartermaster a level below. All 3 exchanged barely perceptible nods. Allies, at least until Rolf heard them out. Rolf unlocked the door, muttering, "This had better be worth my time," and stalked into the awaiting dimness beyond, then stopped dead. Even in the watery light, Dorian could perfectly see the woman sitting... There's no way this bitch snuck into his office like that. That's so embarrassing. Damn! There's no way. Even in the watery light, Dorian could perfectly see the woman sitting at Rolf's desk, her black clothes dirty, weapons gleaming, and her feet propped on the dark wooden surface. That's absolutely my bitch, Aelin. That's absolutely her. Aelin Galathinius, her hands laced behind her head, grinned at them all and said, "I like this office far better than your other one, Rolf." Oh my god! This bitch. Damn. Chapter 27. Dorian didn't dare move as Rolf let out a snarl. I have a distinct memory, Selena Sardothian, of saying that if you set foot in my territory again, your life was forfeit. Ah, Aelin said, lowering her hands but leaving her feet still propped on Rolf's desk. But where would the fun be in that? Rowan was still as death beside him. Aelin's grin became feline as she finally lowered her feet and ran her hands along either side of the desk, assessing the smooth wood as if it was a prize horse. She inclined her head to Dorian. "Hello, Majesty." "Hello, Selena," he said as calmly as he could, well aware that two fey males behind him could hear his thundering heart. Rolf whipped his head toward him, but it was Selena who sat there. For whatever purpose, it was Selena Sardothian in this room. This bitch got split personality. She just kept going back and forth. She jerked her chin at Rolf. "You've seen better days, but considering half your fleet has abandoned you, I'd say you look decent enough." "Get out of my chair," Rolf said too quietly. Aelin did no such thing. She just gave Rowan a sultry sweep from foot to face. Rowan's expression remained unreadable, eyes intent, near glowing, and then Aelin said to Rowan with a secret smile, "You. I don't know, but I'd like to." Rowan's lips tugged upward. "I'm not on the market, unfortunately." "Pity," Aelin said, cocking her head as she noticed a bowl of small emeralds on Rolf's desk. "Don't do it. Don't." Aelin swiped up the emeralds in a hand, picking them over as she glanced at Rowan beneath her lashes. "She must be a rare, staggering beauty to make you so faithful." God save them all. He could have sworn Fenris coughed behind him. Aelin chucked the emeralds into the metal dish as if they were bits of copper, their plunking the only sound. "She must be clever," plunk, "and fascinating," plunk, "and very, very talented," plunk, 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 went the emeralds. She examined the 4 gems remaining in her hand. "She must be the most wonderful person who ever existed." Another cough from behind him, from Gavriel this time, but Aelin only had eyes for Rowan as the warrior said to her, "She is indeed that, and more." Aelin said, rolling the emeralds in her scarred palm with expert ease. Rolf growled, "What are you doing here?" Aelin dumped the emeralds into their dish. "Is that any way to speak to an old friend?" Rolf stalked toward the desk, and Rowan trembled with restraint as the pirate lord braced his hands on the wooden surface. "Last I heard, your master was dead, and you sold the guild to his underlings. You're a free woman. What are you doing in my city?" Aelin met his sea-green eyes with an irreverence that Dorian wondered if she had been born with, or had honed into skill and blood and adventure. "War is coming, Rolf. Am I not allowed to weigh my options? I thought to see what you plan to do." Rolf looked over his broad shoulder at Dorian. "Rumor has it she was your champion this fall. Do you wish to deal with this?" Dorian said smoothly, "You will find, Rolf, that one does not deal with Selena Sardothian. One survives her." A flash of a grin from Aelin. Rolf rolled his eyes and said to the Assassin Queen, "So what is the plan, then? You made a bargain to get out of Endivir, became the king's champion, and now that he is dead, you wish to see how you might profit?" Dorian tried not to flinch. "Dead. His father was dead, at his own hands." "You know how my tastes turn," Aelin said. "Even with Araban's fortune and the sale of the guild, war can be a profitable time for people who are smart with their business. And where is the 16-year-old self-righteous brat who wrecked 6 of my ships, stole 2 of them, and destroyed my town, all for the sake of 200 slaves?" A shadow flickered in Aelin's eyes that sent a chill down Dorian's spine. "Spend a year in Endivir, Rolf, and you quickly learn how to play a different sort of game." "I told you," Rolf seethed with quiet venom, "that you'd one day pay for that arrogance." Aelin's smile became lethal. "Indeed I did. And so did Araban Hamel." Rolf blinked, just once, then straightened. "Get out of my seat, and put back that emerald you slipped up your sleeve." Aelin snorted, and with the flash of her fingers, an emerald, the 4th one Dorian had forgotten, appeared between her fingers. "Good. At least your eyesight isn't failing in your old age." If it's one thing she has, it's the fucking audacity. "And the other one," Rolf said through clenched teeth. Aelin grinned again, and then leaned back in Rolf's chair, tipped up her head, and spat out an emerald she'd somehow kept hidden under her tongue. Dorian watched the gem arc neatly through the air. Its plunk in the dish was the only sound. Dorian glanced at Rowan, but delight shone in the prince's eyes. Delight and pride and simmering lust. Dorian quickly looked away. Aelin said to the pirate lord, "I have 2 questions for you." Rolf's hands twitched toward his rapier. Is that how you say it? Anyway, you're in no running position to ask questions, aren't I? After all, I made you a promise 2.5 years ago. One that you signed. Rolf snarled. Aelin propped her chin on a fist. Have you or have any of your ships bought, traded, or transported slaves since that unfortunate day? No. A satisfied little nod. And have you provided sanctuary for them here? We haven't gone out of our way, but if any arrived, yes. Each word was tighter than the last, a spring about to burst forward and throttle the queen. Dorian prayed the man wouldn't be dumb enough to draw on her, not with Rowan watching his every breath. Good, Aelin said. Smart of you, not to lie to me, as I took it upon myself when I arrived this morning to look into your warehouses, to ask around in the markets, and then I came here. She ran her hands over the papers and books on the desk, to see your ledgers for myself. She dragged a finger down a page containing various columns and numbers. Textiles, spices, porcelain dining ware, rice from the southern continent, and various contraband, but no slaves. I have to say I'm impressed, both at you honoring your word and at your thorough record-keeping. A low snarl. Do you know what your stunt cost me? Aelin flicked her eyes toward a piece of parchment on the wall. Various daggers, swords, and even scissors embedded in it. Target practice, apparently, for Rolf. Well, there's the bar tab I left unpaid, she said, of the document, which was indeed a list of items, and holy gods, that was a large sum of money. Rolf turned to Rowan, Fenris, and Gavriel. You want my assistance in this war? Here's the cost. Kill her. Now. Then my ships and men are yours. Well? Damn. Fenris's dark eyes glittered, but not at Rolf, as Aelin rose to her feet. Her black clothes were travel-worn, her golden hair gleaming in the gray light, and even in a room of professional killers, she took the lion's share of air. Oh, I don't think they will, she said, or even can. Rolf whirled to her. You'll find that you are not so skilled in the face of Fey warriors. She pointed to one of the chairs before the desk. You might want to sit. Get the hell out of... Aelin let out a low whistle. Allow me to introduce to you Captain Rolf, the incomparable, the beautiful, and the absolutely and all-around flawless Queen of Terrasen. Dorian's brows creased, but footsteps sounded, and then the male shifted, as Aelin Galathinius indeed strode into the room. What the fuck? What's going on, y'all? Clad in a dark green tunic of equal wear and dirt. Oh, bitch, I forgot Lysandra's with them. Her golden hair unbound, her turquoise and gold eyes laughing as she strode past the slack-jawed Rolf and perched on the arm of Aelin's chair. Dorian couldn't tell, without a faint sense of smell. He couldn't tell. What devilry is this? Rolf hissed, yielding a single step. Aelin and Aelin looked at each other. The one in black grinned up at the newcomer. Oh, you are gorgeous, aren't you? The one in green smiled. But for all its delight, all its wicked mischief, it was a softer smile, made with a mouth that was perhaps less used to snarling and teeth-baring, and getting away with saying hideous, swaggering things. Lysandra, then. The 2 queens faced Rolf. Aelin Galathinius had no twin, he growled, a hand on his sword. Aelin, in black, the true Aelin, who had been among them all along, rolled her eyes. Ugh, Rolf, you ruined my fun. Of course I don't have a twin. She jerked her chin at Lysandra, and the shifter's flesh glowed and melted, hair becoming a heavy, straight fall of dark tresses. Her skin, sun-kissed, her up-tilted eyes a striking green. Rolf barked in alarm and staggered back, only for Fenris to steady him with a hand on his shoulder as the Fey warrior stepped forward, eyes wide. A shifter, Fenris breathed. Aelin and Lysandra fixed the warrior with an unimpressed look that would have sent lesser men running. Even Gavriel's placid face was slack at the sight of the shapeshifter, his tattoos bobbing as he swallowed. Aedian's father. And if Aedian was here with Aelin... Oh my god. Oh my god. For some reason, that reunion, or like that, not even reunion because they never really even met, but that first meeting between Aedian and Gavriel is gonna just send me spiraling. Oh god. As intrigued as I am to see that the Cadre is present, Aelin said, will you verify to his pirateness that I am who I say I am, and we can move on to more pressing matters? Rolf's face was white with fury as he realized they'd all known who truly sat before them. Dorian said, she's Aelin Galathinius and Selena Sardothian. But it was to Fenris and Gavriel, the outside party, that Rolf turned. Gavriel nodded, Fenris's eyes now fixed on the Queen. She is who she says she is. Rolf turned to Aelin, but the Queen frowned up at Lysandra as the shifter handed her a wax-sealed tube. You made your hair shorter. You try hair that long and see if you last more than a day, Lysandra said, fingering the hair brushing her collarbone. Rolf gaped at them. Aelin grinned at her companion and faced the pirate lord. So, Rolf, the Queen drawled, tossing the tube from hand to hand, let's discuss this little business of you refusing to aid my cause. Damn. Damn. Chapter 28. Aelin Galathinius didn't bother to contain her smugness as Rolf pointed to the large table on the right side of his office, far grander than the piece of shit office where he'd once had her and Sam meet him. Okay, no, I'm fine. It's fine. It's literally just one time. It's literally just this one time. Okay. I knew they were gonna bring him up. I had to know. She managed all of one step toward her designated seat before Rowan was at her side, a hand on her elbow. His face, oh god, she'd missed that harsh, unyielding face, was tight as he leaned in to whisper with face softness. The Cadre is working with us on the condition that it'll lead them to Lorcan, since Maeve sent them to kill him. I refuse to divulge his whereabouts. Most of Ardalan's fleet is in the Gulf of Oro thanks to some foul agreement with Melisande to use their ports, and Maeve's own armada sails for Ilvi. Whether to attack or aid, we do not know. Well, it was nice to know absolute hell awaited them, and that the information about Maeve's armada was correct. But then Rowan added, and I missed you like hell. She smiled despite what he'd told her, pulling back to look at him, untouched, unharmed. It was more than she could have hoped for, even with the news he delivered. Aelin decided she didn't particularly give a shit who was watching, and rose up on her toes to brush her mouth against his. It had taken all her wits and abilities to avoid leaving traces of her scent today for him to detect, and the shocked delight on his face had been utterly worth it. Rowan's hand on her arm tightened as she pulled away. The feeling, Prince, she murmured, is mutual. The others were doing their best not to watch them, save for Rolf, who was still seething. Oh, don't look so put out, Captain, she said, turning away from Rowan and sliding into a seat across from Rolf. You hate me. I hate you. We both hate being told what to do by busybody, overlording empires. It's a perfect pairing. Rolf spat. You nearly wrecked everything I've worked for. Your silver tongue and arrogance won't get you through this. Just for the hell of it, she smiled and stuck out her tongue. Not the real thing, but a forked tongue of silver fire that wriggled like a snake's in the air. Fenris choked on a dark laugh. She ignored him. She dealt with their presence later. She just prayed she'd be able to warn Aedian before he ran into his father, who was now sitting 2 seats down from her, gawking at her as if she had 10 heads. God, even the expression was like Aedian's. How hadn't she noticed that this spring in Wendelin? Aedian had been a boy the last time she'd seen him, but as a man, with Gavriel's immortality, they even looked the same age. Different in many ways, but that look, it was a reflection. Rolf wasn't smiling. A queen who plays with fire is not one who makes a solid ally. And a pirate whose men abandon him at the first test of allegiance makes for a shit naval commander. Yet here I am, at this table. Careful, girl. You need me more than I need you. Do I? A dance. That was all this was. Long before she'd set foot on this horrible island, it had been a dance, and she was now to enter into its second movement, to set Murtaugh's sealed letter of recommendation on the table between them. The way I see it, I have the gold, and I have the ability to raise you up from a common criminal to a respectable, established businessman. Fenharrow can dispute who owns these islands, but what if I were to throw my support behind you? What if I were to make you not a pirate lord, but a pirate king? And who would verify the word of a 19-year-old princess? She jerked her chin at the wax-sealed tube. Murtaugh Alsbrook would. He wrote you a nice, long letter about it. Rolf picked up the tube, studied it, and chucked it in a neat arc right into his rubbish bin. Goddamn. And the thud echoed through the office. And I would, Dorian said, leaning forward before Aelin could snarl at the ignored letter. We win this war, and you have the two largest kingdoms in this continent proclaiming you the undisputed king of all pirates. Skulls Bay and the Dead Islands become not a hideout for your people, but a proper home, a new kingdom. Rolf let out a low laugh, the talk of young idealists and dreamers. The world, Aelin said, will be saved and remade by the dreamers, Rolf. The world will be saved by the warriors, by the men and women who will spill their blood for it, not for empty promises and gilded dreams. Aelin laid her hands flat on the table. Perhaps. But if we win this war, it'll be a new world, a free world. That is my promise to you, to anyone who will march under my banner. A better world, and you will have to decide where your place in it shall be. That is the promise of a little girl who still doesn't know how the world truly works, Rolf said. Masters are needed to maintain order, to keep things running and profitable. It will not end well for those who seek to upend it. Aelin purled. Do you want gold, Rolf? Do you want a title? Do you want glory or women or land? Or is it just the bloodlust that drives you? She gave a pointed glance at his gloved hands. What was the cost for the map? What was the end goal if that sacrifice had to be made? There's nothing more you can offer or say, Aelin Galathinius, that I cannot attain myself. A sly smile. Unless you plan to offer me your hand and make me king of your territory, which might be an interesting proposition. Bastard. Self-serving, awful bastard. He'd seen her with Rowan. He was drinking in the stillness with which both of them now sat, the death in Rowan's eyes. Looks like you bid on the wrong horse, Rolf crooned. He flicked his eyes to Dorian. What news did you receive? But that wrong horse cut in smoothly. There was none, but you'll be glad to know your spies at the Ocean Rose are certainly doing their job, and that His Majesty is quite an accomplished actor. Aelin held in her laugh. Rolf's face darkened. Get out of my office, Dorian said coldly. For a petty grudge, you'd refuse to consider allying with us. Aelin snorted. I'd hardly call wrecking his shit-poor city and ships a petty grudge. You have 2 days to get yourselves off this island, Rolf said, teeth flashing. After that, my promise from 2.5 years ago still holds. A sneer at her companions. Take your menagerie with you. Smoke curled in her mouth. She had expected debate, but it was time to regroup. Time to see what Rowan and Dorian had done and plan out the next steps. Let Rolf think she was leaving the dance unfinished for now. Aelin hit the narrow hallway, a wall of muscle at her back and by her side, and faced another dilemma. Adian. I'm gonna just close that. We're doing this now? I knew it had to be soon, but like, we're doing this now? He was loitering outside the inn to monitor for any unfriendly forces. If she stormed right to him, she'd bring him face to face with his long-lost, completely oblivious father. Aelin made it all of 3 steps down the hall when Gavriel said behind her, "Where is he?" Slowly, she looked back. The warrior's tan face was tight, his eyes full of sorrow and steel. She smirked. "If you're referring to sweet, darling Lorcan, you know who I'm referring to." Rowan took a step between them, but his harsh face yielded nothing. Fenris slipped into the hall, shutting Rolf's office door, and monitored them with dark amusement. Oh, Rowan had told her lots about him. A face and body women and men would kill to possess. What Maeve made him do. What he'd given for his twin. But Aelin sucked on a tooth and said to Gavriel, "Isn't the better question, who is he?" Gavriel didn't smile, didn't move. Buy herself time, buy Aedian time. "You don't get to decide when and where and how you meet him," Aelin said. "He's my goddamn son. I think I do." Aelin shrugged. "You don't even get to decide if you're allowed to call him that." Those tawny eyes flashed, the tattooed hands curled into fists, but Rowan said, "Gavriel, she does not intend to keep you from him. Tell me where my son is, now." There it was, the face of the lion, the warrior who had felled armies, whose reputation made wintered soldiers shudder, whose fallen warriors were tattooed all over him. But Aelin picked at her nails, then frowned at the now empty hall behind her. Hell if I know where he's gone off to. They blinked, then started as they beheld where Lysandra had once been, to where she had now vanished, flying or slithering or crawling out of the open window, to get Aedian away. Aelin just said to Gavriel, her voice flat and cold, "Don't ever give me orders." Aedian and Lysandra were already waiting at the Ocean Rose, and as they entered the pretty courtyard, Aelin barely dragged up the energy to remark to Rowan that she was shocked he hadn't opted for a warrior's... Bitch, my words are slurring, I'm sorry. Aelin barely dragged up the energy to remark to Rowan that she was shocked he hadn't opted for warrior squalor. Dorian, a few steps behind, laughed quietly, which was good, she supposed. Good that he was laughing. He had not been the last time she saw him, and it had been weeks since she'd laughed herself, felt that weight lift long enough to do so. She gave Rowan a look that told him to meet her upstairs, and halted halfway across the courtyard. Dorian, sensing her intent, paused as well. The evening air was heavy with sweet fruit and climbing flowers. The fountain and the sun were gurgling softly. She wondered if the owner of the inn hailed from the Red Desert, if they'd seen the use of water and stone and greenery at the keep of the silent assassins. But Aelin murmured to Dorian, "I'm sorry about Rifthold." The king's summer-tanned face tightened. "Thank you for your help." Aelin shrugged. Rowan's always looking for an excuse to show off. Dramatic rescues give him purpose and fulfillment in his dull, immortal life. There was a pointed cough from the open balcony doors above them, sharp enough to inform her that Rowan had heard and wouldn't forget the little quip when they were alone. She held in her smile. It had been a surprise and a delight, she supposed, that an easy, respectful calm flowed between Rowan and Dorian on their walk over here. She motioned for the king to continue with her and said quietly, well aware of how many spies Rolf employed within the building, "It seems you and I are currently without crowns, thanks to a few bullshit pieces of paper." Dorian didn't return her smile. The stairs groaned beneath them as they headed for the second floor. They were almost to the room Dorian had indicated when he said, "Maybe that's a good thing." She opened and closed her mouth, and opted for once to keep quiet, shaking her head a bit as she entered the chamber. Their meeting was hushed, thorough. Rowan and Dorian laid out in precise detail what had happened to them. Aedian pushing for counts of the witches, their armor, how they flew, what formations they used, anything to feed to the Bane, to amplify their northern defenses, regardless of who commanded them. The general of the north, who would take all those pieces and build their resistance, but the sheer ease with which the Iron Teeth Legion had taken the city. Man in Blackbeak, Aedian mused, would be a valuable ally if we can get her to turn. Oh, if only he knew. Aelin glanced at Rowan's shoulder, where a faint scar now marred the golden skin beneath his clothes. "Perhaps getting Manon to turn on her kin would ignite an internal battle among the witches," she said. "Maybe they'll save us the task of killing them and just destroy each other." Dorian straightened in his chair, but only cold calculations swirled in his eyes as he countered. "But what is it that they want? Beyond our heads, I mean, why ally with Erwin at all?" And all of them then looked to the thin necklace of scars marring the base of Aelin's throat, where the scent permanently marked her as a witch killer. Baba Yellowlegs had visited the castle this winter for that alliance, but had there been anything else? We can contemplate We can contemplate the whys and hows of it later, Aelin declared. If we encounter any of the witches, we take them alive. I want some questions answered. Then she explained what they'd witnessed in Ilium, the order Brannon had given her. Find the lock. Well, he and his little quest could get in line. It was never ending, she supposed, while they dined that night on the peppered crab and spiced rice. This burden, these threats. Erwin had been planning this for decades, maybe for centuries, while he'd slept. He'd planned all this out, and she was to be given nothing more than obscure commands by long-dead royals to find a way to stop it. Nothing more than God's damned months to rally a force against him. She doubted it was a coincidence that Maeve was sailing for Ilwi that same moment Brannon had commanded that she go to the stone marshes on its southern west peninsula, or that the God's damned Morath fleet was squatting in the Gulf of Oro, right on its other side. There was not enough time to do what she needed to fix things, but small steps. She had Rolf to deal with, the little matter of securing his people's alliance, and the map she still needed to persuade him to use to assist her in tracking down the lock. But first, best to ensure that infernal map actually worked. This is it, right? This is the last one. God. It's just 29 and then that's it. So this is the last chapter that we're reading. Chapter 29. Too many animals loitering about the streets at this hour would attract... I'm sorry. I have a math test to take after this. That's my last thing to do for the day. I just have to get through this math test. And I've been studying my ass off for it. And if I don't pass it, I'm going to be so pissed because I've literally been I'm busting my ass to pass it. But after that, I'm going to bed. I'm knocking out. And I'm either watching Twilight for the rest of the night and just sleeping on and off, or I'm just sleeping completely because I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. What's up, Nico? Okay. Bear with me, y'all, because I still have not read any of Tower of Dawn. Okay. I have tomorrow off, and I don't think I have any homework for tomorrow. So I will catch up on the chapters tomorrow, I promise. I know I've been saying that, but tomorrow for real, I'll set a reminder for it and everything, because I've only read 1 through 4. Y'all, I'm so sorry. No excuse. Okay, so then I will spend the rest of this week catching up on Tower of Dawn. And I will be caught up by Saturday. I will be caught up. So help me. Even if I have to get like a chapter summary before. But I will be caught up. Yeah, sorry y'all. Too many animals loitering about the streets at this hour would attract the wrong sort of attention. But Anya still wished that the shifter was wearing fur or feathers compared to this. That she was sore on the eyes as an auburn-haired and green-eyed young woman. She could have passed for one of the lovely mountain maidens of northern Terracin with that coloring. It was who Lysandra was supposed to be that they waited just inside an alley, who he was supposed to be too. Lysandra leaned against the brick wall, a foot propped against it to reveal a length of creamy white thigh, and Adian, with his hand braced against the wall beside her head, was no more than an hourly customer. No sound in the alley but scuttling rats digging through rotten, discarded fruit. Skull's Bay was precisely the shithole he expected it to be, right down to its pirate lord. I'm only doing certain chapters from Tower of Dawn live. So next Saturday it's going to be 32 through 35. Yeah. God. Who now unwittingly held the only map to the lock that Aelin had been commanded to find. When Adian had complained that, of course, it was a map they could not steal, Rowan had been the one to suggest this. plan, trap, whatever it was. He glanced at the delicate gold chain dangling around Lysandra's pale throat, tracing its length down the front of her bodice to where the amulet of Orinth was now hidden beneath. Admiring the view? Adian snapped his eyes up from the generous swells of her breasts. Sorry, but the shifter somehow saw the thoughts churning in his head. You think this won't work? I think there are plenty of valuable things on this island. Why would Rolf bother to go after this? Storms, enemies, and treasures. That was what the map showed. And since he and Lysandra were not the first two, only one, it seemed, would be able... And since he and Lysandra were not the first two, only one, it seemed, would be able to appear on that map inked on Rolf's hands. Rowan claimed Rolf would find the amulet interesting enough to go after it. Rowan and Aelin have a tendency to say one thing and mean something else entirely. Adian heaved a breath through his nose. We've already been here an hour. She arched an auburn brow. Do you have somewhere else to be? You're tired. We're all tired, she said sharply. He shut his mouth, not wanting his head ripped off just yet. Each shift took something out of Lysandra. The bigger the change, the bigger the animal, the steeper the cost. Adian had witnessed her morph from butterfly to bumblebee, to hummingbird, to bat within the span of a few minutes. But going from human to ghost leopard to bear or elk or horse, she'd once demonstrated took longer between shifts. The magic having to draw up the strength to become that size, to fill the body with all its inherent power. Casual footsteps sounded, assented by a two-note whistle. Lysandra's breath brushed against his jaw at the sound. Adian, however, stiffened slightly as those steps grew closer, and he found himself staring at the son of his great enemy, King, now, but still a face he'd hated, sneered at, debated cutting into tiny pieces for many, many years. A face he'd seen drunk out of his mind at parties mere seasons ago. A face he'd seen buried against the necks of women whose names he'd never bothered to learn. A face that had taunted him in that dungeon cell. That face was now hooded, and for all the world he looked like he was here to inquire about Lysandra's services. Once Adian had finished with her, the general clenched his teeth. What? Dorian looked over Lysandra, as if surveying the goods, and Adian fought the urge to bristle. Rowan sent me to see if you had any developments. The prince and Aelin were back at the inn, drinking in the dining room, where all of Rolf's spying eyes might see and report them. Dorian blinked at the shifter, starting. In God's above, you really can take on any human form. Lysandra shrugged, the irreverent street whore debating her rate. It's not as interesting as you'd think. I'd like to see if I could become a plant, or a bit of wind. Can you do that? Of course she can, Adian said, pushing off the wall and crossing his arms. No, Lysandra said, cutting a glare in Adian's direction. And there's nothing to report, not even a whiff of Rolf or his men. Dorian nodded, sliding his hands into its pockets. Silence. Adian's ankle barked in pain as Lysandra subtly kicked him. He reined in his scowl as he said to the king, So, you and Whitethorn didn't kill each other? Dorian's brows scrunched. He saved my life, nearly got himself burned out to do it. Why should I be anything but grateful? Lysandra gave Adian a smug smile, but the king asked him, Are you going to see your father? Adian cringed. He'd been glad for their adventure tonight to avoid deciding. Aelin hadn't brought it up, and he had been content to come out here, even if it put him at risk of running into the mail. Of course I'll see him, Adian said tightly. Lysandra's moon-white face was calm, steady as she watched him, the face of a woman trained to listen to men, to never show surprise. He did not resent what she had been, what she portrayed now, only the monsters who had seen the beauty the child would grow into, and taken her into that brothel. Aelin had told him what Arabin had done to the man she'd loved. It was a miracle the shifter could smile at all. Poor Wesley! Not me and this bitch crying about Wesley! Oh, God. Adian jerked his chin at Dorian. Go tell Aelin and Rowan we don't need their hovering. We can manage on our own. Dorian stiffened, but backed down the alley, no more than a disgruntled would-be customer. Lysandra shoved a hand against Adian's chest and hissed. That man has endured enough, Adian. A little kindness wouldn't kill you. He stabbed Aelin. If you knew him as I have, you wouldn't be so willing to fawn over. No one expects you to fawn over him. But a kind word, some respect. He rolled his eyes. Keep your voice down. She did, but went on. He was enslaved. He was tortured for months, not just by his father, but by that thing inside of him. He was violated, and even if you cannot draw up forgiveness for stabbing Aelin against his own will, then try to have some compassion for that. Adian's heart stuttered at the anger and pain on her face, and that word she'd used. He swallowed hard, checking the street behind them. No sign of anyone hunting for the treasure they bore. I knew Dorian as a reckless, arrogant. I knew your queen as the same. We were children then. We were allowed to make mistakes, to figure out who we wish to be. If you will allow Aelin the gift of your acceptance, I don't care if he was as arrogant and vain as Aelin. I don't care if he was enslaved to a demon that took his mind. I look at him and see my family butchered, see those tracks to the river, and hear Quinn tell me that Aelin was drowned and dead. His breathing was uneven, and his throat burned, but he ignored it. Lysandra said, Aelin forgave him. Aelin never once held it against him. Adian snarled at her. Lysandra snarled right back and held his stare with the face not trained or built for bedrooms, but the true one beneath. Wild and unbroken and indomitable. No matter what body she wore, she was the staghorn's given form, the heart of Oakwald. Adian said hoarsely, I'll try. Try harder. Try better. Adian, I love them so much. Shut the fuck up. Oh my god! I love them so much. So much. Adian braced his palm against the... He's literally like one brain cell, and then like Lysandra like makes up for everything that he like, she makes up for it all, and she like knocks some sense into him, and she's like, shut the fuck up, do better, be better. I love them. Adian braced his palm against the wall again and leaned in to glower in her face. She did not yield an inch. There's an order and rank in our court, lady. And last I checked, you are not number 3. You don't give me commands. This isn't a battlefield, Lysandra hissed. Any ranks are formalities. And the last I checked, she poked his chest, right between his pectorals, and he could have sworn the tip of a claw pierced the skin beneath his clothes. You weren't pathetic enough to enforce rank to hide from being in the wrong. Oh! Oh my god! Oh my god! His blood sparked and thrummed. Adian found himself taking in the sensuous curves of her mouth, now pressed thin with anger. Ah! The hot temper in her eyes faded, and as she retracted her finger, as if she'd been burned, he froze at the panic that filled her features. Instead, shit. Shit. Lysandra backed away a step, too casual to be anything but a calculated move, but Adian tried, for her sake. He tried to stop thinking about her mouth. Oh, no. You truly want me to meet my father? Or you truly... What the fuck? You truly want to meet your father? She asked calmly, too calmly. He nodded, swallowing hard. Too soon. She wouldn't want a man's touch for a long time, maybe forever, and he'd be damned if he pushed her into it before she wanted to. And God's above, if Lysandra ever looked at any man with interest like that, he'd be glad for her, glad she was choosing for herself, even if it wasn't him she picked. Tabs in here. Don't tell me to enjoy it now, because that implies that they don't end up together, and I'll be damned if they don't end up together. The only way I will accept them not being together is if one of them dies. Literally, no. And even then, it's not something that I want. Adian swallowed, forcing himself to remember what she'd asked his father. Right. Did he want to see me? Was all he could think to ask. She cocked her head to the side, the movement so feline he wondered if she was spending too much time in that ghost leopard's fur. He nearly bit Aylin's head off when she refused to tell him where and who you are. Ice filled his veins. If his father had been rude to her. But I got the sense, Lysandra quickly clarified as he tensed, that he's the sort of male who would respect your wishes if you chose not to see him. Yet, in this small town, with the company we're keeping, that might prove impossible. Did you also get the sense that it could persuade him to help us, knowing me? I don't think Aylin would ever ask that of you, Lysandra said, laying a hand on the arm still braced beside her head. What do I even say to him? Adian murmured. I've heard so many stories about him. The Lion of Dornell. He's a God's damned white knight. I don't think he'll approve of a son most people call Ardalan's whore. She clicked her tongue, but Adian pinned her with a look. What would you do? I can't answer that question. My own father. She shook her head. He knew about that. The shifter father who had either abandoned her mother or not even known she was pregnant, and then the mother who had thrown Lysandra into the street when she discovered her heritage. Adian, what do you want to do? Not for us, not for Terrason, but for you. He bowed his head a bit, glancing sidelong at the quiet street again. My whole life has been not about what I want. I don't know how to choose those things. No, from the moment he'd arrived in Terrason at age 5, he'd been trained, his path chosen. And when Terrason had burned beneath Ardalan's torches, another hand had gripped the leash of his fate. Even now, with war upon them, had he truly ever wanted something for himself? All he'd wanted had been the blood oath, and Aylin had given that away to Rowan. He didn't resent her for it, not anymore, but he hadn't realized he had asked for so little. Lysandra said quietly, I know what that feels like. He lifted his head, finding her green eyes again in the darkness. He sometimes wished Arab and Hamel were still alive, just so he could kill the Assassin King himself. Tomorrow morning, he murmured. Will you come with me? To see him. She was quiet for a moment before she said, Do you really want me to go with you? He did. He couldn't explain why, but he wanted her there. She got under his skin so damn easily, but... Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. But Lysandra steadied him. Perhaps because she was something new, something he had not encountered, but not filled with hope and pain and wishes. Not too many of them, at least. If you wouldn't mind. Yes, I want you there. She didn't respond. He opened his mouth, but steps sounded. Light. Too casual. They ducked deeper into the shadows of the alley, its dead-end wall looming behind them. If it went poorly, he had a shapeshift... If it went poorly, he had a shapeshifter capable of shredding apart droves of men at his side. Adian flashed Lysandra a grin as he leaned over her once more, his nose within grazing distance of her neck. Those steps neared, and Lysandra loosed a breath, her body going pliant. From the shadows of his hood, he monitored the alley ahead, the shadows and shafts of moonlight, bracing him. He'd picked the dead-end alley for a reason. The girl realized her mistake a step too late. Oh, Adian looked up, his own features hidden with his hood, as Lysandra purred to the young woman who perfectly matched Rowan's description of Rolf's barmaid. I'll be done in 2 minutes, if you want to wait your turn. Color stained the girl's cheeks, but she gave them a flinty look, scanning them from head to toe. Wrong turn, she said. You sure? Lysandra crooned. A bit late in the evening for a stroll. Rolf's barmaid fixed them with that sharp stare and sauntered back down the street. They waited. A minute. 5. 10. No others came. Adian at last pulled away, Lysandra now watching the alley entrance. The shifter wound an auburn curl around her finger. She seems an unlikely thief. Some would say similar things about you and Aelin. Lysandra hummed in agreement. Adian mused. Perhaps she was just a scout. Rolf sighs. Why bother? Why not just come take the thing? Adian glanced again at the amulet that disappeared beneath Lysandra's bodice. Maybe she thought she was looking for something else. Lysandra wisely didn't fish the amulet of Orinth out from her dress. But his words hung between them as they carefully picked their way back to the Ocean Rose. Oh, that's it. That's it. Oh, that's it for today. Oh, y'all, I don't think I will survive I think Adian just lets his temper get the best of him. He has no, he's been bad. He's been bad for so long that it's just, second nature to him to, either assume the worst out of people and just be mad and lash out. What do you mean? Just you wait. Is Adian gonna fuck shit up? No. He wouldn't. Y'all don't like Adian? Why? He gets mad. Why does he get mad? I love Adian. Adian and Dorian, I'm defending with my life. And if him and Lysandra don't end up together, mother above, it's gonna be... Yeah, I don't really care too much for Chaol. I don't not like him, but I wouldn't say that he's a character that I love. He's just kind of there. And yeah, he's just kind of there for me. How do you feel about Rowan now? I like him. I don't think I haven't really developed an opinion on him. I like him. It's not that I don't like him anymore, and I feel like he's just there too. Although that fan art I saw a fan art of him, and I was like, oh, it was really, and it made me feel a lot of things. But that was about the most that I felt for him. We're on Empire of Storms. Storms? Storms. Plural. Ugh. After Tower of Dawn, I love Chaol. That's what everyone says, that after I read Tower of Dawn, I'll love him. And it's not that I don't like him. I don't think I ever went through a phase where, I didn't like him. He was doing things that I didn't like, and he was being annoying. But I don't think I ever didn't like him as a person. I just think he was getting on my nerves. But I don't really have an opinion on Chaol because he's one of those characters that's just in the middle for me. And I don't think too much about him. My favorite characters that I think about, literally all the time, and I want them to just have the world of happiness, and, I want nothing to touch them, are Dorian, Aelin, because that bitch has been through enough, Lysandra, and Adian. Those are my top 4. And Manon. Okay, hold on. There's a lot. Hold on. Actually, also Astrid. I feel like if anything happens to Astrid, especially after her little brush with death, I'm gonna be so mad. Someone once said Queen of Shadows is very realistic. Him and Aelin are both so young and they broke up. So when you force two people in that situation, they're young. Yeah. That's why it was just... it's not that I didn't like him. He was just getting on my nerves. I feel like I haven't gotten to know Fenris enough. Like, I like him, and I would defend him with my life because of everything he's done for his brother. And I would probably cry if he died, but I don't think it would, like, impact me that much. But, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I'll get to know him. Y'all, I am so scared for Kingdom of Ash. I literally walk by my bookshelf and I look at it and I get this like existential dread of reading it. Like, I'm so scared to read that book. He goes too far for me. I don't know. I see all of Adian's lashing out so far, because I haven't seen all of it. So far, it's I feel like it's within reason. Because, I mean, yeah, he sees Dorian as this, like, pillar of everything that destroyed his entire family and, like, what he loved. And while Aelin was able to forgive Dorian for it, that doesn't mean that it's as easy for Adian to forgive him. You know what I mean? But that being said, I don't know the extent of what he does. So we'll get there when we get there, and we'll see how I feel about him then, if I still defend him then. And yes, I think that played a huge role. Aelin had distance. She, you know, she didn't have to deal with the king throughout those years that she was, like, working for Arabin. And poor little Adian. I just see a little boy. I'm gonna cry. I just see a little boy holding a knife or, like, holding a sword about to go in battle, and he's just so scared. And then he had to answer to the king, and he had to answer to Dorian, and he had to watch Dorian, you know, live his life and get to be young and reckless with, like, women and stuff, and he never, you know, it was always about survival for him, and for Dorian it was also easy. So I feel like that also builds up a lot of the resentment. But let me stop talking before I embarrass myself and watch Adian do something fucking stupid. I'm on Empire of Storms, and how do I feel about House of the Dragon? I am liking it. I just have to separate the books from the show, because if I hyperanalyze over every little thing from the books and how they changed it from the show, like, I'm never going to be happy. So I have separated the books from the show, and I'm enjoying it. I am. I like the direction that they're going with Alicent and Rhaenyra, but I do hope, I won't spoil anything, but I do hope that they keep a certain relationship in the show that might be taken out because of Rhaenyra and Alicent's chemistry together, but we'll see. I will say, if they... Never mind. I'm liking it. I am. I like the actors that they chose, and I like the direction that they're going in now. And it's fuck Kristen Cole until the day that I die. I hate that man so much. Are they fruity? Girl. Yeah. They are. Who, Rhaenyra and Alicent? Yes, because Allison... Never mind. Let me not say something that's going to get me banned on TikTok. Allison is a C-U-N-T. I don't like her. No, it's fuck Kristen Cole. Fuck Kristen Cole. Hate that man. I will say that, and I'll watch me get banned for it, but he's not a real character. He's not a real person. I promise. He's not a real person. I'm not talking about a real person. TikTok. Anyway, yeah. Okay, well, I'll leave y'all with that. To mull over that. Don't forget to watch House of the Dragon tonight. And I will see you guys tomorrow to read another chapter. A few chapters. Hopefully I will be less hungover tomorrow and feel more like a human being and not a shell of a human being. And wish me luck because I have a math test to take right now. So, whoop. Yeah, the drama of making Allison and Rainier friends first is, it was a good move. Oh, Loki's coming to say hi to me. I have a little jumping spider on the online car. But yeah, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye. Love y'all.